welcome back to Weatherford Daze. We are so thrilled that you are with us on this beginning. Is it the first day of spring when this comes out? I
I
think
think so.
it might be.
Now, this is Rachel, and I'm Jason. Just want to go ahead and we say that every time. We forgot this time. It's okay. You know, that's who we are.
You don't have to say
If
every
you didn't know, now you know. Go,
Okay.
go ahead,
Well,
baby. You're good.
all right. Yeah. So hopefully by this weekend it's warmed up. Right now it's a little bit chilly for us. So yeah. But the topic that we're going to be discussing today is not a chilly one. That was
It's
so corny.
wait, no. It's got some of that island flair.
Island Fair, yes. So, the book that we're discussing today, we're continuing on in our Jules Verne series.
Extraordinary voyages.
Extraordinary. I
What
cannot say that.
what
Extraordinary
I said.
Voyages. That, yes, that one.
Yeah. What's the name of the
We're
book?
talking about The Mysterious Island
Yes.
by Jules Verne, and this was one of my favorites as a child, though I don't think I read it that many times. Oddly enough, I think I might have only read it once or twice. And it was quite interesting reading it again. I'm sitting there as I'm reading it this past week going, why did I not read this multiple times? I don't even understand.
I knew of the story and kind of what happened from some abridged books from when I was a kid, but I never really read it in the original, French to English translation like we did for in preparation because I read it for the first time to prepare,
Yeah.
and
I
yeah,
do remember watching the movie and having the thought when I watched the movie, this is nothing like the book.
no,
What on earth did they do? It really. So, if all that you have ever seen is the movie,
sorry,
you don't know the story at all, pretty
no,
much.
no, it it hews more towards those Robinson Crusoe, Swiss Family Robinson style things than monsters and
Hmm.
stuff like that. I think that maybe they're doing that because of other influences at the time.
I would love for them to actually do a good movie retelling of this book because,
A one season, 14 episode.
yeah. And if it were up to me,
Hmm.
it would be a movie retelling in the form of a curriculum, a homeschool curriculum. Though I will say that this book would just be the best homeschool curriculum of any book that I have ever read. And that's pretty high praise. There's so many books that make great like supplements to curriculum and stuff. But this one, honestly, if you threw in a math and you threw in a grammar, this could be everything else for an entire semester. And it could cover multiple grades. And yeah, I'm just sitting here going, I really, really wish that I could go back and, actually use this when all of my kids were in school. Because now I've got my oldest three are graduated, I've only got one, and this would have been so good to have done together with multiples.
I'm struck by the oceanography and fish biology and that you could get with 20,000 Leagues, and then the next one we'll have to
Yeah.
talk about that. But
But this
there's
one,
always a focus of different
this one,
elements.
it covers so many things. You could do history just about because we start off with the Civil War, and you could just, you could do a segment about what the world looked like at that time and what the historical events were going on around this. And then you could move on to, I mean, it covers like cataloging plants,
Printing
animals.
press, because they actually eventually do start to try to print things. Chemistry.
I don't remember them printing anything in the book.
Oh, I think they wanted to. He wanted to.
Yeah, at the very end, our reporter actually builds a newspaper. They don't actually go through the process of building it. And that's one of the things that's really striking about this book because not only do you have a very compelling and interesting story that just kind of grips you and like keeps you moving through the narrative, you're also every single obstacle that these five characters, our five main characters, face, they talk you through what the process is of how they're going to solve their problem. And it really, it's just completely ingenious. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what, in brief, what the plot is. And then we can kind of continue talking about how this could work for homeschooling. And then we'll move on to kind of themes and stuff.
We start out and we can name the characters. These are they are kind of escaping from Richmond, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And once you real,
The
yeah,
year is 1865, right?
right, the
The
Civil
end of
War
the
is,
Civil
yeah.
War.
Well, it's still going on when they're
No,
leaving.
at the end of the Civil
Okay,
War.
okay, okay. Toward the end, right? Because they don't know how it ends until they get back home, and they go, "Oh, we
Right.
hope that right
But
winning." Yeah,
these are five people who are all stuck in Richmond, Virginia as captives. They're Northerners, they're captives of the South.
yeah,
So,
yeah. You've got Cyrus Harding. He's an army engineer. He's a captain. He has a freed black servant named Nebuchadnezzar, or Neb for short, and he stays with Cyrus because he actually is well treated and cares for him.
I actually love that Neb was not captured along with Cyrus Harding. He came and found him in the middle of, like, after he'd been taken captive. He comes to this place where obviously, him as a black man, he would not be well received, but he comes to find his, and he calls him his master. He's been freed by Cyrus Harding, but he still has so much love and devotion to him that he comes and finds him.
Well, it reminds me. I thought about what was the thing about in the Bible where if you had a slave, that you freed them, it was the year of Jubilee at a
Mm-hmm.
certain time, and they could actually choose to stay,
Mm-hmm.
and you would mark their ear, you would pierce their ear by the doorway. You'd pierce it in the doorway, and it would be a sign that they would stay with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Paul says he's a bondservant of Christ. Anyway, and you got Gideon Spilett, which is just a great name. He's a reporter, and he actually is very brave because I guess he does war correspondence or something. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to get in those trenches, so to speak. I was thinking of those reporters who would report back for different wars, and they were just really in there. Pencroft, sailor, Herbert, who is the younger guy, and he kind of studies some things that Cyrus Harding kind of he takes Harding takes him under his wing kind of as a student.
But originally he was with Pencroft.
Okay, okay.
Right. So he's a 15-year-old that Pencroft has kind of taken under his wing. And so for some reason, I don't think they really explain why Herbert and Pencroft were there. They just kind of had gotten stuck in Richmond
Yeah.
during the siege and they couldn't get out. So,
There's a couple other characters that come in, but we can talk about that when they show up because those are interesting
mhm.
and connect to other of Jules Verne's books. But one of the characters I did not know, I didn't read the other book, so I didn't know. Another character we can talk about, we did know, but I very much connected to them. So they are escaping, right, in a balloon.
Mhm.
There's a storm.
There's a hurricane,
Oh, it's bad. Yeah.
which they decide to escape in the middle of a hurricane. The balloon was actually built so that one of the southern, I don't remember what rank he was, but there was one of the southern guys was going to go and spy on the enemy. And because of the hurricane, the expedition had gotten pushed off because they weren't insane enough to try and take a balloon up in the middle of a hurricane storm. But our five prisoners, oh no, they were insane enough.
It's
So,
that we'd be crazy not to. It's like that crazy like a fox mentality that where you just take the craziest,
But already that
They won't be
speaks
expecting that.
it speaks to Cyrus Harding reputation among them all, that they kind of went, okay, we've got the engineer on board, we're going to attempt this because, if anybody can do it, he can. So he had this reputation, they already had faith in him, even, not all of them having known him for very long, they had faith in him and his reputation that he could get through anything. So,
And Pencroft's a sailor, so he'd get him through the storm. He could figure out, the wind and which way they were going to go.
yeah. But I mean, basically, they get up there and they ride the eye of the hurricane for 5 days, and they're taken just all the way from Richmond, Virginia, into the southern hemisphere, and it's quite a crazy ride. But they end up marooned on a desert island, and there that's where our story begins, and where they kind
Oh,
of
there's a it's deserted, but they think, but it's got, there's vegetation. There's
yeah,
stuff going on there.
well, that's what that means, though.
Yeah.
But this is an incredible island where there's just diverse animal and plant
Extremely diverse.
life. There's extremely diverse topography where it's a volcanic island. There's a cone, but it's long dormant at this point that they end up on the island, though it does not stay that way. Spoilers. And you just journey along. They're there for 4 years, and we see just through their ingenuity and hard work how they conquer and thrive on this island.
They map it, they name it,
Mm-hmm.
which is funny because they've got like Mount Washington. They call it Lincoln Island after Abraham Lincoln. Some of them, though, they don't really have people that name them after. They're like, oh, this is Reptile Cove, or because it looks like a tail of a lizard or something,
I
or
loved the
yeah,
discussion that they had
mandible,
for why they did
jaw.
the
Yeah,
different things,
yeah.
in different ways. Where it was like, we're going to honor our homeland with these major things, and then other things we're going to name after the way that it looks or after significant, events that happened there in order to help us remember it better. And I mean, I can remember as a kid going, oh, that makes perfect sense. And it made me want to explore just the logic and the thought process that was put into this and how it was explained, of going, I can go and conquer the world and approach it logically and thoughtfully the way that it's broken down, because, I was seeing it modeled in this book.
And they don't call themselves castaways. They call themselves colonists.
Mhm.
And that tells me they're going with
But that was a
ingenuity,
deliberate
we're
choice.
going to
Mhm.
figure this out. And they get along pretty well till they work together. You think if this were if here's the thing,
Mhm.
if this were a modern story told by people 5 minutes ago, the guy who did the TV show Lost or whatever, they would inject drama into it where it was unnecessary.
Mhm.
They would have, oh well, Spilett is
But see, that's the
mad
thing.
at Harding about this and such, and
You
they
don't
would
need
inject that stuff.
drama between the people when you have so much drama that's just in staying alive.
Yeah.
They had to conquer the lack of food, and it really was, it mentions in the book, the difference there was between these castaways, where they literally were thrown on land with nothing. They, in the course of their journey, as they're going and ending up, they find themselves over the water and the balloon is sinking. They end up throwing everything that they had in the balloon out in order to lighten the load until they actually end up coming within sight of land. And at that point, they even cut off the basket. So they're just hanging to the ropes, just trying to get
They lose one guy.
somewhere.
They lose one guy for a good little
They do.
chunk. It's Harding.
Right.
And Neb is beside himself. He never gives up and keeps trying to look
Hmm.
for him. There is a dog,
Dog Top.
Top,
Hmm.
which I made the joke it was Top Dog, but no, he's great. Uh, but Neb and Top keep looking, and Herbert joins in too, but they keep looking for Harding,
Mm-hmm.
and they do. This is where it starts getting interesting. I mean, it's already interesting, but there's little bits of mystery. They find him, and he's okay, but that's impossible.
So yeah, they've thrown everything out, and they have they really are starting from scratch. And
Mm.
like what I was saying was that, the author does mention and contrast that just them having nothing with the Robinsons. With Robinson Crusoe and Swiss Family Robinson, he was talking about how, they were thrown onto their islands with things. And so they had something to start with. And you see the ingenuity and the creativity of them taking the things that they have and actually, you know, making something out of that. But they really were in such a better position. The Swiss Family Robinson, they have an entire ship worth of stuff. And Robinson Crusoe, again, there's also a shipwreck and there's things that he can start with these guys, they're sitting there, we've got nothing. And, then it's like, oh, well, we find one match that's stuck in the seam of Pencroft's clothes, right? And so he's there going, okay, so we have a way to make fire. And it's just, it's striking how you're sitting there going, they have literally next to nothing. And then what they do have, what care they're taking with it. And, that one match gives them fire up until they find, which you were going to going to spoil the fact that they lose the captain.
Yep, the engineer guy.
Right. Cyrus Harding is thrown into the water, and they then spend, several days searching for him. And in the meantime, Pencroft is there just trying to get them fire, get them food, get them some shelter, while the others are all kind of occupied with searching for Cyrus because like you were saying, obviously Neb is not going to be okay with not having his master there. So, and then the moment when they finally find him, and that's when the mysteries begin.
In the movie though, they find him. Everything is fast forwarded. So
Yeah.
they find him a lot faster than they do in the book, and I think that
Ah,
that you
the movie
yeah,
doesn't
yeah, yeah,
exist.
and yeah, and the thing about the I liked the build up of the emotion of, I kind of had the idea they were going to find him, but you get the idea that they're going, is he okay? Is he fed? Is he, are we going to find a corpse? What's going on? So yeah, they're on edge.
When you're sitting there going, day after day after day is passing here with no sign of him. And, they're traveling the entire beach, both directions, and just can't find footsteps, can't find any signs of anything, looking for the dog also fell off with him. And then, that moment when they finally find him.
The
And
dog is the clue, right? The dog
right, the dog comes and gets them in the middle of the night, right? And yeah, leads
he
him
runs
to
off as if
where
he's showing him where he is. Yeah. Okay.
Neb had actually found him first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had seen footprints and had followed the footprints. And he came upon and he thought, he was in a cave, just completely passed out, barely breathing, and Neb had thought that he was dead. And when the others got there, they found Neb just thinking that, he was going to have to bury him. And they realized, no, he's actually alive and we're able to revive him.
It's like they were thinking, how did he get there?
Right.
Because the way the water was, it's like he was moved.
Yeah, he was quite a ways away from the water.
Mm-hmm.
And they had he had no recollection from the time that he had hit the water till then.
Mm-hmm.
And so Yeah, they're going, well, maybe in delirium, he walked there himself. And Cyrus Harding, of course, is kind of going, yeah, that must be it. But at the same time, he's going, you hear him thinking, and there's no way that that's possible that I did that without knowing. Somebody rescued me. And that's just the beginning
And they
of.
kind of leave it as a kind of a, I don't know.
Right,
And but they have work to do. They've
right.
got to see what their supplies are and
Yeah, they
got to get started.
start and they start finding, a place to live, they find shelter, just, you know, stockpiling food.
They've got to trap these kind of these birds. He's kind of like, you know.
They start making, I mean, just the building of weapons. They make a forge, they have brick oven, all
And
of
this
the
takes
different
months.
things.
It
Right.
takes time, and you really see that progression.
Yeah. Of them making pottery, and you get just thing after thing after thing that as they're going, okay, well, this is what we need, this is the process by which we get it, which is why I say this would make such a great homeschool curriculum, because every single problem, it's not just, oh yeah, they found something that they were able to use immediately. It's the we're going to take and actually make bicarbonate of soda, and we're going to take and actually refine metal and steel and iron, and all the different things, that actually explaining the process of each of those, which just to be
Using the
able to.
glass from a watch, a watch face is just interesting.
Right. And then actually, in by the end of the book, they're blowing glass to make windows for their home.
Yeah.
Every
How about the granite house?
process, yeah, every process that you could possibly think to need, just starting out from scratch and just figuring out, they even make a telegraph wire.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention. I was like, let you mention that because I didn't want to jump the gun. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But there's so much in there as they're surviving and then thriving, to go, just the process of, a very methodical step by step. And that's something that Jules Verne just does so well. And it's, even for me as an adult, it's like, it's fascinating. And I'm finding myself stopping and looking up words and going, oh, hang on a second, this process that they're describing here, would this actually work? How much liberty is he taking with this? But I really do think that he, wanted this to be kind of a manual for all, the different sciences that were, natural sciences that were out there.
that's part of what the Extraordinary Voyages thing was
Mhm.
was was he wanted he was really fascinated.
Science and the exploration of the
Yeah.
world and the building of machines
A
and the
narrative.
processes
Yeah.
interesting was something that he did, like putting all of this into this just cool story, this gripping narrative
So
that's full of mysteries and.
so the Magic School Bus owes everything to Jules Verne. I would say so, or lots of science fiction does, but that one does because it's like we're going to integrate science into a narrative to help people learn things. There's so many children's shows that owe a lot to that. I, I just thought
Hmm.
that's dumb, but
Yeah, I mean, it's really good. It's really worth reading. It's really worth diving into. You will come out of it feeling smarter. You can't fail to feel like you've learned so much by reading. And that's not something that you can really say with most fiction.
there's actually a term for these kinds of stories: Robinson Crusoe, Swiss Family Robinson, and this one, and also the story. It's called The Story of the Castaways or Captain Grant's Children, I think is the name of it. But it's another Jules Verne story that
Search for the Castaways?
yes, thank you. And it's where there's a character from that who shows up in this. which
Hmm.
is where which is where we talked about in the previous episode, we talked about literary universe connected, where it's everything's connected.
Let's go ahead and talk about Ayrton.
Yes. By the way, those are called Robinsonades. Robinsonade.
Okay.
That's fun fact. Robinsonade. But that was coined much later. I guess the Castaway with Tom Hanks would also be a Robinsonade. Anyway, all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do want to talk about Ayrton because that's one of the themes of this that I want to talk about, other
Yeah.
than just, survival and exploration and, just all of the different scientific discovery and learning stuff that you get.
These are the character studies. Yeah.
Right. The character study. He is, and his story is just something that is so interesting to me
Mm.
because, okay, so he is the as they're on the island, they've been there for a couple of years at this point. The castaways build a small boat or ship, right?
Is it the Bonaventure or did? Yeah.
Bonaventure, yes. And it's small. It's something that they've built over the course of, I think it takes them about 5 months to build. And
Pencroft goes hard on
yeah,
this. He's in the rain doing it, and you're like, this guy.
but Cyrus Harding builds the plans. Pencroft just takes over and really builds the ship. They're so excited about it. It's something that they can take to go around their island. They can go. They also they've managed to chart where they are by and through the discovery of a chest that just washes up on the shore. That's filled with kind of, and this is after they've been there for a good long time, but then all of a sudden a chest comes and washes up, and in that chest is amazingly, all of the things that they've been lacking.
Yeah.
So they've got
Books as
weapons,
well. A
books,
Bible. Yeah.
charts, a compass, several different barometer, just several different instruments, a camera was in there, some clothing, some medicines, just various things are in this chest. And so with the charts, they're able to actually recheck, because one of the first things that Cyrus Harding does is figure out what the latitude and longitude is of where they're at.
And they give it in the book as a side note. And I looked it up on Google Maps, and I'm gonna put it on screen, the location of Lincoln now. Okay. You can see where it is. And how many miles away is it from New Zealand? Like 1,500 miles from New Zealand?
It's quite a ways. The
Yeah.
closest thing that they are to it is there's another small island. Do you remember the name?
Tabor
Tabor
Island.
Island.
Yeah.
Thank you. So they realize that they are, I think it's about 200 miles from Tabor Island, and that's the closest thing that they're to of actually like a known island. The
It
island
took them about 48 hours to get there with the Bonaventure. They kind of
2 to 3
calculate it.
days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to depend on wind.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Of course.
But
I might be
it's
misremembering.
close enough that they could actually take their small ship there. And that's something that, Pencroft really wants to do. And at first, Cyrus Harding is kind of like, well, is there really, does that serve a purpose? It's not really, there's not really any need to go there. We know that, Tabor Island's there. Sure, it would be nice.
What if they run into a problem, hit a reef or something, then they're all
right.
passed away now. They're dead.
Do the benefits really outweigh the risk of separating the company, or, just what would be the purpose? Because
get off the island. What if we can get off the island, or is there another ship comes that can take us away from there, and we're off on the Bonaventure? We miss it.
I don't think he mentions that.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, sure,
that's a possibility.
Through your head, fine. But then another mysterious thing happens, and there's a message in a bottle that it comes up, and it's this perfectly preserved note in the bottle that comes just at the right time that they find it, and they're kind of going, okay, that's odd, providential, sure, okay, but odd. But in this note, it says that there's a castaway on Tabor Island. It gives the latitude and longitude and, exactly where it is. And so that gives them actually a reason to go to Tabor Island. So Pencroft and Herbert and Gideon Spilett are the ones that decide to set off, and Cyrus Harding and Neb stay at home. Well, we call it home, but they stay at the Lincoln Island. And they go off and they're able to find on this island. Well, at first it seems deserted. They find, there's a hut with, a place that it seems like it was inhabited, but it's dusty and kind of falling apart. It doesn't look like it's been inhabited for a while.
Yeah.
So they're kind of going, okay, well, there obviously was somebody here, but we don't see any signs that there's currently anybody here. But then as they're collecting, they find, that there are several animals there and several plants and things that they don't have back on Lincoln Island. So they go, well, okay, we'll just go ahead and gather some things and take it back. And as Herbert is gathering stuff, he gets attacked by a wild man. And they, it, yeah, it's just the description of, this man who seems like he's kind of lost all of his humanity. He can't speak. He's um, almost naked. He's got like a loincloth and just, his hair is wild, and but they're able to subdue him and kind of, then going, okay, well, what do we do with him? And they decide, well, we have to bring him back with us. We can't just leave him here.
Right.
So they do, they bring him back, and, in the hopes that he can be, returned to his faculties. So, and that is what ends up happening. It takes a while. He is calm. He doesn't try and attack them again, but it's, just moments where they kind of see intelligence in his eyes, and they're going, he's still not speaking, but
He does help on the ship, doesn't he? With like doing the rigging, and you're like, wait a minute. So he does. So the clue is that he does know some things about being a sailor somehow.
right.
That's coming through.
But it's like just these little moments, and they're really moved with pity for him, going, he must have had something, horrible happen to end up in that state. And yeah, it takes a while, but eventually he does kind of come back to himself and he starts speaking. But at first, he really, even though he speaks to them, he doesn't he doesn't act like he still seems like he's just had something horrible. He doesn't really tell them what's happened. He doesn't want to be around them. He asks, if he can be separate. And they're, just like, well, no, you're free, but we would like you to be with us. And just through their compassion and their patience with him, he finally does tell them his story. And we find out that he was he was trying to be a pirate, right? That he had been a part of a shipwreck, and after he had been shipwrecked, he'd kind of fallen in with a bad crowd. He'd become a leader and he'd used just a lot of deception and stuff to try and get to a point where he was going to take over the ship.
Mutiny.
And it didn't end up working. He got found out and had been captured, and the captain had kind of set as his punishment that he was going to be abandoned on that island. And in place of the ones that he had tried to abandon, they knew that there were some people that were there that were still alive, but and they were actually trying, the ship that he was trying to take over was trying to go and rescue these people. Yeah, it's a little bit complicated, but he was kind of, I think he had given or had exchanged information for being, rather than being killed or being handed over to the authorities, he was left on the island instead. But, he's, in telling the story, he was very, you could see that he was just still had so much self-loathing for what he had done. He was very penitent that he had fallen to such a low point that he was willing to kill and betray and, become pirate. And, he very much, over the course, we find out that it had been 12 years that he had been left on that island by himself. And it had been several years that he had descended into kind of this just bestial madness. But he really had repented. But he loathed himself so much that he couldn't accept kind of forgiveness. He couldn't forgive himself. So there's that theme in there that you see, the others that are, after hearing his story, they're going, you've paid enough. You really, you don't have to do anymore. You've suffered enough. What you've had, the 12 years, that's enough for, your crimes. And they're willing to forgive him. And then you see, the next thing kind of, we actually see some pirate friends of Ayrton's that show up in a ship. And we have another mysterious event.
Speedy.
Right. Which the pirates are there, and our 6 men now, with the addition of Ayrton, are trying to figure out how to get rid of them, how to fight them off. But they're coming up closer, and they're really in a tight spot where they're thinking, we don't know how we're going to defend ourselves. And all of a sudden, the pirate ship blows up. It explodes. So, you're seeing kind of these mysterious, unexplained events happening throughout the book. This is just one of many things that they're going, something is happening here that we don't understand. There's someone else. There's some mysterious person that has a lot at their disposal, a lot more than we have, that is just showing up and rescuing us at random times. When we get into a spot, then our mysterious benefactor shows up and gets us out of the spot.
They almost attribute supernatural, so it's almost like, oh, it's like godlike.
But at the same time, well, I think the others kind of are more able to accept it's just, more of a supernatural thing. But Cyrus Harding is going,
just somebody with
is here, and I'll find him. Yeah. But like I was saying, you have, after the pirate ship blows up, 6 of the pirates actually were still, or escaped onto the island. And Pencroft is like, let's go hunt them down. Let's, no mercy. Let's hunt them down like animals, because that's what they are. And Ayrton is like, well, I don't have a say in this because I'm one of them. I'm just as bad.
Yeah.
And, Pencroft's sitting there going, he's a very black and white kind of person, and all of the rest of them are like, let's give them a chance to prove themselves. If they don't attack us or show us that they're actually, because right now they're on the same, the playing field has been leveled, right? they're now stuck here just the same as we are. So maybe we give them a chance to show us that there's no hard feelings. Maybe they want to just kind of come alongside us and work and join in. Maybe they'll repent. We have to give them a chance to repent of that lifestyle.
So do they get taken out by normal means?
Well, and that is the thing is they they give them a chance and they waste their chance. They attack and they capture Ayrton, they shoot Herbert, who almost dies, and then again they're rescued at the very last moment by their mysterious benefactor who brings some medicine. But yeah,
There are
and
these
then
little electrical bullets or something. These little
mhm,
shells bolt.
yeah. They're going, after Herbert's gotten better, they're going to hunt down the rest of the pirates because, they've proven that they're not willing to live in peace on the island. And they discover them all dead, just kind of laid out on the beach. And yeah, there's just this little red mark on each of them that's the only sign that anything's happened. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but I thought again that was, I like that there are those themes in the book that kind of show mercy and compassion and thoughtfulness about, you know, letting people prove who they are, giving them second chances. I think that that's, another thing that really leads you to think and can be a good thing to talk about, if you're doing this book or reading it with your children, that's an important part of it
Redemption.
is the redemption. And it really does, it finalizes too with when you find out who the mysterious benefactor is. And we've already said this, that this is a sequel to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So you do find out in the end that it's Captain Nemo that has been there all along. And
So is his Nautilus is as well, and it's
mhm,
in like this kind of this grotto, kind of half submerged. Um,
mhm.
I was a little disappointed that they didn't leave in the Nautilus, but I realized they don't know how to run this thing.
It was
But
stuck.
all right, that too.
Yeah.
But that's why. Well, of course,
Yeah.
I was
It
thinking, yeah,
had gotten
he
stuck
wanted
there.
it to, yeah. But go ahead. So Nemo is there.
Hmm. And Nemo's been the one over the past, 3.5 years that's been kind of watching them, and he realizes that he comes to admire them over
Which is
time.
interesting because Aronnax admired Nemo
Hmm.
as a scientific marvel, and here they are. He's just marveling at their science. Do you think he sees a little bit of himself in them, in their ingenuity and the triumph of the intelligent man to
So,
conquer his?
but I also think that maybe Captain Harding has something that Nemo never had either.
Hmm,
Because Captain Harding isn't weighed down by the guilt and the remorse and the anger that
the
Nemo had.
tragedy, yeah.
Right. The just desire to be done with the world. Whereas, Captain Harding was very much just this full of life and full of hope. They're both brilliant men. They're both inventors and engineers and understand the natural world, but there was definitely a difference in, I guess it's the level of hope that they carried. Nemo had given up hope, and I think that Cyrus Harding gave it back to him somewhat at
And
the very end of
and
his
in the book,
life.
you do get his origin. You get
Hmm.
somewhat of Nemo's origin. You find out who he really was, his true name, and what led up to the events that you see in 20,000 Leagues.
Hmm.
So you definitely get some motivation. You got some motivation from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but you get more, I think, of what Jules Verne wanted to say about Nemo here.
One of the things that really is striking to me, like the most striking thing, is that, Nemo has watched them. He's seeing something in Cyrus Harding that he wants for himself, But at the end of his life, and that is the thing, he calls them to him when he knows that he's about to die
Mm.
on his deathbed. And there's something that Nemo needs,
Right.
right? That he's wanting from this man that he's come to respect. And actually, that's one of the things that I sent over to you. I'm going to pull it up here. So he's talking about the judgment that Aronnax had had. The reason why Professor Aronnax left was the pivotal moment was when Nemo decided to destroy the the frigate, right? And so he's talking about that with Cyrus Harding. And it says, "It was an enemy's frigate," exclaimed Captain Nemo, transformed for an instant into the Prince Dakkar. "An enemy's frigate! It was she who attacked me. I was in a narrow and shallow bay. The frigate barred my way, and I sank her." A few moments of silence ensued. Then the captain demanded, "What think you of my life, gentlemen?" Cyrus Harding extended his hand to the citizen prince and replied gravely, "Sir, your error was in supposing that the past can be resuscitated, and in contending against inevitable progress. It is one of those errors which some admire, others blame, which God alone can judge. He who is mistaken in an action which he sincerely believes to be right may be an enemy, but retains our esteem. Your error is one that we may admire, and your name has nothing to fear from the judgment of history, which does not condemn heroic folly, but its results." The old man's breast swelled with emotion, and raising his hand to heaven, "Was I wrong or in the right?" he murmured. Cyrus Harding replied, "All great actions return to God, from whom they are derived. Captain Nemo, we, whom you have succored, shall ever mourn your loss." Herbert, who had drawn near the captain, fell on his knees and kissed his hand. A tear glistened in the eyes of the dying man. "My child," he said, "may God bless you." Like, to me, that's just such a striking scene. Because I feel like Nemo wanted judgment from a man that he respected.
Right.
He wanted kind of to be told that he was okay, that he was right. And I don't know that Cyrus Harding completely gave it to him, but he did give him, I think, enough to be at peace with. It's kind of, he's going, "I can't judge you necessarily as being in the right, but I can tell you that I judge you for what actions I do know." And that's the thing, they're sitting here going, "We have been rescued by you time and time again. We owe you our lives." As we find out, Nemo was the one that pulled Cyrus Harding from the ocean. He, had done so many things for them over the time, and they're
Yeah,
just
the
going,
chest and the pirate battle. Yeah.
"Mhm,
Oh yeah. So many.
yeah." The medicine for Herbert at, the very last moment.
Mhm.
It just, they're going, "We who you have succored, you have helped us. We can't do anything but be grateful for you for what you've done for us. Your past actions, those are in the past, you know?" And so there really was kind of a peace there. I don't think that Nemo got everything that he wanted, but he was asking for more than they could give. But yeah, there's just some really deep moral conversations that can be had there. And I think that they're, definitely worth having. And that's, you know, it's just, there's so much more to this book than just an adventure story. But, yeah,
The shame of it is that I almost didn't want them to go back because they were doing here they are free from a land in turmoil. They don't know
Mhm.
whether, here they can have a place. I mean, they really, the only thing they lack would be female companionship because once Pencroft gets his tobacco, he's fine. There's actually a part where Herbert and Neb, I think, find tobacco or something. They all kind of and they give it to him as a present.
Herbert and Spilett.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and he is just like so happy. So right, right.
Yeah.
That's from yeah.
One thing I will say
Not
though,
Pencroft's Billy.
like the other theme that really is kind of woven throughout the book, and it really kind of hits home at the very end with, what you're talking about, them leaving. They had really desired to to be able to reconnect with the world, to leave, but then to come back.
Yes.
They fell in love with the island and they wanted, they, like you said, they were calling themselves colonizers. They wanted to annex it to America, and then bring more people there and really,
Almost like an actual
yeah,
honest to goodness colony.
they loved the island. They wanted to stay there for the rest of their lives. That was, they didn't necessarily want to leave. They wanted to reconnect. And we want that for them. We see that just they had worked so hard and they had just produced so much. They had everything that they needed was there. And then we find out the very last thing that Captain Nemo tells Cyrus Harding is that, that they've realized that the volcano has gotten active again, but they're not extremely worried at that point. They're just like, well, it's far off and it's kind of pointed towards the sea. There's no real reason why we should be in any danger
Hmm.
if it does erupt. But Captain Nemo is like, the danger is actually underground, that there's actually these passageways that are opened up and that are not very thick, and that, there's a danger that as soon as the lava comes through and hits the ocean underneath, that the entire island is basically going to explode.
Yeah. The
And
pressure.
so, and during the pirate attack, their small ship that they had been destroyed,
Yeah.
and Pencroft had been in the process of building another boat, a bigger boat, but it, you know, they're working on it, but it's going to take a little while. It's even bigger. They've got pieces of the pirate ship that they can use too, the one that Nemo destroyed.
Yeah.
But they're kind of going, okay, well, there's just kind of this ominous uh, build up that's happening where they're going, we're trying to get a boat here, but also, most of them are thinking, well, yeah, the volcano's active and it might erupt, but it's not a big deal. And Cyrus Harding kind of going, well, actually, it looks like it is going to be a big deal. And it does end up, they're pushing themselves and they get to it. The volcano does erupt and, things are getting more and more intense, but they've got the ship almost to the point of being able to launch it. And the night before they actually launch, the island explodes. So, big spoiler there, but they all get thrown into the ocean and their ship is destroyed. It's just in pieces. They weren't able to rescue it. And there is just basically one block of granite left of the entire island. And they're able to swim back to it. They've managed to grab a few supplies. They've got a couple of days worth of provisions, but they're stuck on, I think it's like a 12-foot
Yeah.
block in the middle of the ocean with nothing. After it's now been 4 years that they've been on the island, they fell in love with it. they thought that they had, everything that they needed. They worked so hard, and then it's like just in an instant, everything's gone. And they do end up, the last thing that Nemo has apparently done was he had, before the pirates discovered their ship, he had taken it and gone to the other Tabor Island
Yeah.
and had left a note there that, with the islands, and that there were castaways there and everything. So they end up being picked up by the people who are going to come back to get um,
It's
Ayrton.
the Duncan is the name of the ship, I
Right,
think.
the Duncan, which, because they knew that Ayrton had been left there and they were leaving him there for a while, then they were going to come and get him again once he had kind of done his penance, done his time. And so they come back to the island, Tabor Island, discover the note, and head over. And they are there just in time. And, they've basically, they've eaten all their provisions. They're just sitting there waiting to starve to death. And, they've all passed out and they wake up in the ship, in the Duncan that's come to get them. And they're just like, how did you find us? What happened? And, they're told that, there was a note. They're like, oh, well, it must have been Nemo. So you've got just this, you know, providential timing theme that's throughout where, again and again, it's like they're working so hard, but they reach the end of their ability. And then, you know, it's like this higher power steps in. And I think that's an interesting theme of the book is just this idea of, there's only so far that we as humans can go. There's only so much that we can work. And it really is, when we've gone as far as we can go, it's like you do have to stop and say, okay, well, God, either I die or you step in. And that's, just such a such a good message, as you're seeing how far, man's intelligence and man's hard work and determination can take us, because that's just such a strong theme of this book is how much we can do when we're working together and when we're, intelligent. Just there's, and yet every time, again and again and again, it's just this moment of, well, it's not enough. And you need someone else. You need, and in all of those, it's just, the hand of the Almighty. And in some of those instances, it's Nemo providing that. But in the end, it's like just, it was an act of God that took that island away. And it's also, an act of God, just the timing for them to be rescued right when it's, they're at death's door. And, to me, that's the strongest thing is just there's only so far that we can go. There's only so much that we can rely on ourselves and then God. And that's a huge, huge theme throughout the book. Just, these acts of God, where it's like a hurricane that brings them there. It's a volcanic explosion that ends their time there. And in all of that, they're trusting in God to get them through. That's all I've got. I think, yeah, this is just, it's a brilliant book. It's well worth the time. It's a huge book. It's thick.
Yeah.
This is a chunky one, but it's worth the time invested to read it. If you can read it with your kids, do so. It's worth the time, I think, to spend in just so many topics that can be brought up.
Yep. And I was I think that no matter how detail oriented you can be, you can also kind of, get some of the dates wrong or anything. But I think there's a little bit of a date discrepancy between the happenings of the different books. But if you just get over that and just take it in as a narrative, and that's how you can kind of square it in your own mind. In fact, they even suggest that in the book.
Discrepancy when the author himself has kind of said,
Admitting to
I've changed this because I needed to. You know,
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have
it's one thing if
Wikipedia at the time, so
messed, or if he had messed up and hadn't realized it. It wasn't that he had just messed up, it's that he deliberately changed it in order for the second book to work
yeah,
with the first.
enjoy. Don't think about it too much. Just kind of go, okay, 12 years here, there. It all makes sense. And it does make sense if you just read it from a narrative standpoint and don't think about the some of the minutia, you know. Yeah.
But we hope that you've enjoyed this discussion and hope that you will read the book. Check it out. Don't watch the movie. It's well, you can watch the movie if you
It
want to, but just know it's a completely different
it is
story.
completely different and it's okay.
If you like, gigantic animals attacks, then you might enjoy the movie.
Maybe
It's not in the book at
it
all.
made me hungry for crab legs. That's all I can tell you.
Well, we're going to be back next week with Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yes.
So hope you will join us then. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, subscribe so you can keep on it, enjoy.
Yeah.
Love how we always put that at the very end. Most people put that at the very beginning. Put it at the end. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us. Until next time.